Hi, everyone. This is Gayle. Tonight we're talking about different types of service dogs. I got a question from someone asking just that. So I thought I would make it our live stream topic for tonight. There's all different kinds of service dogs. And the question that she asked specifically is why does Pipsy wear a harness, whereas other dogs will wear a vest or a cape? So I thought that was a pretty good question. We are going to dive right into it. So welcome to my channel tonight. Let me turn on some other light here. Good gracious. Hey, Thomas Morris Trains is in. How are you, Thomas? I cannot get this light straightened out. Okay. So I have a new light that I'm trying to get figured out here. Whew, I'm also cold. So that's why I'm wearing my heated vest this evening. Thomas Morris says he's doing okay. Awesome. Awesome. So you all who are turning in now or for the live stream later, you can go ahead. This would be a great time to subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. So we would welcome that. So thank you all again for being out here. This is, I think, a pretty important topic because when I travel, I get asked all different kinds of things about my service dog. And some of the things are, what does he do? What are the different types of tasks, basically, that service dogs do? And so we tend to be more familiar with like guide dogs for the blind and dogs who help hearing impaired. Somewhat for seizure, not as much for mobility dogs or PTSD dogs. In fact, some people are still confusing PTSD dogs with emotional support dogs, and they're not. They're actually specifically task trained. So we are going to talk about some of that. If we have time, we may dive in later in the segment about the difference between a service dog and emotional support pet or therapy dogs. So we've got a lot to talk about tonight. Valerie Reese is in the house. Hi, Valerie. How are you this evening? And, okay. Old Conrail gauge log spike. That's cool. That's really cool. Right. So I want to draw your attention down to the description box. And if you're watching this on your television, you may not be able to open it up now, but later you might want to, because the definition of what a service dog is comes from the ADA.gov website. And it explains what businesses and state and local governments have to do to make sure they don't discriminate against people who have service dogs. But it also talks a little bit about what service dogs are and are not. And we're going to be talking about some of that and using that as our definition and some of the examples of service dog tasks that they have listed on their website. So we're going to talk about some of that. First, real quick, little about myself. Okay, she's just sitting and knitting. Now, Valerie does all kinds of knitting work, some really cool stuff. She helps the poor with it, helps the homeless. So lots of neat things there with her knitting. Also, Thomas Moore's Trains is all about trains. So neat channel there too. So I would encourage you all to go check out both of them. And if anyone does not know what a gauge lock spike is, he'll explain. If you want to type that into the comment section, I'll be glad to pull that up if you want to. I keep saying one day we've got to have a live stream. If you want to shoot me an email, let me type in the email address. We can get that scheduled. Bebodacious@mail.com, not Gmail. So all right. Let me share the page here from the ADA website because we're going to start there, and I'll share it. Okay, here we go. What service animals are? They are dogs, first and foremost, or miniature horses. But we're going to talk about dogs. They can be any breed or any size of dogs. So you may have a Great Dane that's a service dog, or a Chihuahua, or everything in between. The dog that I have right now is a Labrador Retriever. The one I had prior to him was a Husky mix, and we're going to talk about both of those here in just a little bit. But the key thing is they are task trained to perform a task that's directly related to a person's disability. So, in order to have a service dog, you have to have a disability of some type or disabilities. Not everyone who has a disability has a service dog, and not everybody who has something wrong with them has it to the extent where it's a disability. For example, somebody who has attention deficit disorder may be able to function and may not need the use of a service dog, because it's not to the point where it's an actual disability for them. They can still manage, they just happen to have attention deficit disorder. And I know a couple of people like that who are not disabled from it, they just happen to have it. And so you have to have it to the point where it actually is a disability, and a doctor has to sign off on that. But they are not required to be certified. In fact, the ADA doesn't recognize any kind of certification. And if somebody comes up and tells you that they have a registered service dog, that they don't have to do that. So a lot of times they're trying to skirt the system. So that's just something to be aware of. And they're not required to wear a vest or any other kind of ID that indicates they're a service dog. And one of the reasons, too, that we're not talking about emotional support animals or comfort dogs tonight is because, as you can see on the ADA.gov website, emotional support or comfort dogs are not service dogs. That's because providing emotional support or comfort is not a task that's related to a person's disability. Dogs provide emotional support. That's why we have pets. That's what we do, what they do. But some have, a little more need for that than others. Okay, so examples of service dog tasks that the ADA gives is a person who uses a wheelchair may have a dog that's trained to retrieve objects for them. A person with depression may have a dog that's trained to perform a task to remind them to take their medication. We'll talk about that in a minute. A person with PTSD may have a dog that is trained to lick their hand to alert them to an oncoming panic attack. And someone who has epilepsy may have a dog that's trained to detect the onset of a seizure and help the person remain safe during a seizure. So, and you guys, you all can read the rest of it. It talks about laws that apply to housing and those that apply to airplanes and other rules for employment. Asking if a dog is a service dog, that's all on there. So it's quite lengthy. So you can familiarize yourself with that. I really strongly encourage everybody to do that. So I get lots and lots of questions when I'm out. Let's see. Peter Parker, a.k.a. Spider-Man the Hero, says he's sick. Peter, I'm sorry. You've just been through the ringer. I'm so sorry. I hope you get to feeling better. And let's see. Thomas Moore Train says, what is a gauge lock spike? In 1977 to 1993, Conrail won a unique railroad spike that is self-secure, and they ordered the gauge lock spike. It looks like a 7-inch cotter spin. Cool. Nice. And let's see. Peter Parker is not feeling good. I'm so sorry. I hope you feel better. Okay. So we're going down here. but a little bit about me. I've been a service dog handler for 18 years, since 2006. And a service dog handler is someone who has a service dog, and they've obviously learned to handle a service dog, because there's a lot that goes into it. And service dogs, I want to stress this: service dogs are not like pets. Okay, there are times when I really want to treat my service dog like a pet. I might want to give him just a tidbit of leftovers from the dinner table, and I can't, because once I do that, I can't take him into a restaurant anymore. And Valerie over here, she was on the mission trip with me, and she got to see Pipsy in action quite a bit. And she can vouch that he does not touch people food. And he also doesn't go begging for attention usually, but there were a couple of people on the trip that, one person even said that she was going to take the blame for breaking my dog. But anyway, so some of the things that service dogs do are not necessarily obvious. There are invisible disabilities, and those kind of lead into invisible tasks that you may not see a service dog doing something when they actually are. It's a little easier when you see someone who is sight and vision impaired and they have a service dog, because often they'll have the cane, or otherwise they may have on dark glasses and so forth, and they usually have some type of guiding harness, which is a little different than Pipsy's harness. It's not designed for balancing or bracing, it's designed for guiding. So we also have hearing dogs, which help people who are deaf or just somewhat hearing impaired. And so some of the things that they might do is, if the alarm system goes off in a building, someone who's hard of hearing may not be able to hear the alarm system when it goes off. So a hearing dog can go get that person and wake them up if an alarm's going off, and then help lead them out of the building. And someone who is hearing impaired may not hear their baby crying. And so a service dog can be trained so that when the baby cries, they go get mama or daddy, who comes and takes care of the baby. So there's a lot of different things they can do. With depression, it mentioned medications. People who are depressed can lose track of time, and so that they can forget to take their medications. So what you do for that is train the dog to remind you to take your medicine. And that, I know, doesn't that sound awfully hard to do? But it's not that bad. Have you ever heard of a dog who, around a certain time, let's just say 7 p.m., they were waiting by the door because they knew that it was time for them to go out and take a walk? Or a dog who waited by the door that knew exactly what time mom or dad was coming home? Have you all seen that or heard that? Type that over in the comments there. Yeah, Valerie says he never eats people food, and he does not. And she says he missed out on my good cooking. Yeah, he did. He did. And Valerie was an amazing cook on the mission trip. I got to tell you, if you ever go on a mission trip, get Valerie to go with you just so she can cook. She's an amazing and creative cook. But yeah, he did miss out. So, okay, so if you all have ever seen that, drop that over here in the chat or in the comments down below if you come back and watch the live stream later. Because dogs know our schedule, and they may not have the ability to read a clock, but they have this internal clock that tells them when somebody's coming home. And so if you give them a treat at the specific time and you teach them to associate that with when you're taking your meds, then the dog learns and knows roughly what time it is to get his treat. And that's the big reminder when they associate it with the meds. That's a reminder to take them. But that's a specific task that the dog is trained to do. And to be a service dog, you have to be trained to do that. Some of the other things that might go along with depression or just with a psychiatric dog is if somebody has anxiety, they can be trained to respond to that anxiety to lessen the severity of a panic attack. So an example of something that a dog might do to help break up a panic attack is come and start licking your hand. If you're a person, I was out the other day and there was another person who had their service dog, legit service dog, and you could see their anxiety starting to build up. And about the time I was going to go over and say and ask if they were okay, the dog starts hitting the leg that was bouncing. And it took her a minute to realize that the dog was there. And he started head bumping her with his head. And that is an example of some of the tasks that particular dog was trained to do to mitigate and stop that panic attack. Another thing that the dog might do is be trained to do deep pressure therapy. I think I've got a picture of Pacer Tipsy doing that. Let me see if I do, and I'll pull it up. Okay. So this little guy, even though he is not a PTSD or psychiatric dog, he does deep pressure therapy anyway. Okay, Thomas Moore's Train says, Gayle, I sent you an email. Awesome. I will get that either later tonight or tomorrow at some point and message you back. So here he is, and he is laying against me. Now I'm fine. He just decided that he wanted cuddle time. But you can see how he's laying against me. His body is the full length of my body. He's not across my lap. That is the way he was trained to do his DPT. DPT being deep pressure therapy. And so in a psychiatric dog, a person who has anxiety or even depression, when they start getting kind of panicky, the dog senses that, sometimes the dog will try to get them to lay down. And that's so they can lay on them and ease that anxiety and ease that panic attack. Because the pressure and the weight of the dog can help lower blood pressure and bring us back to the present, and that can stop a panic attack. So that's why dogs are trained to do that. But those are specific tasks. The dog knows when to come up, when to lay down, and how to do it. It's not just some random thing that the dog does. They're actually trained to do that. So those are a couple of things about the psychiatric service dogs. Let me look and see if I have another photo of him just laying. No, don't see it. Okay. So a couple of other things here. Let me see. I did a YouTube Shorts and I can't find it. Patooey. I did a YouTube Shorts that has some of the things on there that Pipsy does for me. And I wanted you to see his diabetic alert. Now, he is not a diabetic alert dog for me. I didn't get him for him to be a diabetic alert dog. That's something that he was trained to do, but I didn't necessarily need it. I got him to be a mobility dog. So yeah, with my luck, he learns and picks up how to do the blood sugar. And let me see. Oh, see, I had it pulled up and accidentally closed that out. I've got a cute one of him ignoring the vacuum cleaner. That was interesting. There we go. There we go. Yeah, he completely ignores the vacuum cleaner. If you haven't seen that short, it's kind of funny. So, okay, let me pull this up, and I can do this. This is my video. I don't have to worry about copyright. That's such a nice feeling sometimes not to have to worry about that. Okay. So, here we are. Here he's my mobility dog, and you see him in the harness. And this is actually what prompted the question that led to the video. And that is, why does he wear the harness where some dogs wear vests? Okay, here he is. He's alerting, and I'm not paying attention. So he decided to boot me. And then he literally gets up in his face and on me to try to get me to realize that he's alerting. So that's one of his behaviors. And he was trained to do some diabetic alert work. It's just that he wasn't put with that for me. He was put with me to be a mobility dog. This particular agency that I got him from, this program trains all of their dogs the same way until a certain point. And then at that point, the dogs split off, and some go to become therapy dogs, and some go to be mobility dogs, and so forth. But that's separate training, so they break them up at that point. But even though an agency or program trains a service dog with scent samples on how to alert, that does not mean that the dog is actually going to alert for you. Okay? And that's because of the bonding. If the bonding between the person and the dog isn't there, it doesn't matter how much training the dog has had, the dog's not going to alert. And that's because even though they've had the scent samples, they have to know you well enough to know that something's wrong and to figure out what's wrong. So you have to have that bonding there. And Pipsy and I bonded really well. And I think that's why he started alerting more with the blood sugar than what we ever expected him to, because he didn't get all the training that like an alert dog would have gotten. And that's just because of the split and how the dogs are trained. You can't train any dog to do all the tasks. You just can't, because that would be hundreds of tasks that the dog does. So I want to pull up this other video, and that's of him actually alerting again to low blood sugar. And I mentioned earlier that you don't always realize that the dog is working. And this is one of those moments. Okay, so I want to bring this up because I think it's important, if we're talking about service dogs, I think it's important to realize that you may not notice him working even though he is, because that's just the way it is with all service dogs. So here I am. I'm getting him out of the van. We are in either New Mexico or Oklahoma. I don't remember. But I went to get him out of the van, and he's sniffing all around my face, my head, just kind of checking me out there. And you don't notice this unless you're a service dog handler. But he was, okay, in New Mexico. But he was checking me out to see if my blood sugar was okay. And if it had not been, he would have let me know. Now, one of the times that a person's blood sugar may be a little out of whack is if they are on a trip and it's a hot place that you're going to. that can cause it. So it was really good to have him and have him willing and able to do this, even though he didn't have the super advanced training in this. But he would have let me know, like you saw in the other video with the head bumping. And when he first started alerting, I could not figure it out. I didn't know what on earth he was doing. He started with licking my hand, and I would kind of ignore him, and then he would head bump, and then I was kind of figuring out, after that happened a few times, I was kind of figuring out that something was up, and that's what was up. And I've got another little situation too with him that I'll tell you about in just a second. I think I saw somebody come in. Aha! Busy lady is in the house. There she is. Hey, Busy. Hello, hello. It's good to see you. Yes, you did. Finally caught me. You did indeed. You did. I'm glad. Because it's been a couple of weeks, and we're glad to see you. So let's see here. Now that what I just showed you was how he does for low blood sugar. He actually does something different for high blood sugar. Okay, Thomas Moore's train says the gauge lock spike is made to hold the pindrole plates down to the ties. I know what ties are. I don't know what the plates are. And Thomas said it's a big hairpin with teeth. Oh, wow. That's so cool. Busy Lady says she wishes her cat could be a service cat. Well, actually, cats are not recognized as service animals for under the ADA. Only dogs and miniature horses. Hey, Busy Lady. Hey, Valerie. Okay. I never get notifications. Glad to see you too. Yeah. So sometimes YouTube sends them out, and sometimes they don't. YouTube's going to do what YouTube's going to do. But I'm glad you're here. I am. Let's see. So with Pipsy, going back to the alerts here, he alerts differently for high blood sugar, and I could not ignore that one. He absolutely, there's no ignoring his high blood sugar alert. Let me see. I hope that I have it up because it's crazy. I don't know if I do or not. I thought I did. Okay, I don't see it. It's not coming up when I do a search. But basically what he does when my blood sugar goes high is he will grab my shirt and pull me around. Here we go. Diabetic service dog alerts won't take no for an answer. I'm going to pull this up because I want you to understand that there are different types of alerts that dogs do, and even among the same dog. So this one, this little stinker, I'm going to reload it here. This little stinker grabs my shirt like this and pulls me around to let me know that something is wrong and my blood sugar is up. And he's very insistent about it. But you can see how different that is from his other alerts. He's just, yeah. That is because he knows my blood sugar is not normally high, and he was letting me know. And on this particular day, I had an asthma attack going on, and they always put me on steroids whenever I have asthma that's really acting up to try to break that. And every time they put me on steroids, my blood sugar skyrockets. And so he picked up on that. And that doesn't happen unless I'm on steroids, which is not that often. And he was like, I know something's really bad wrong, and we got to fix this. So that's why he was just absolutely unmistakable. Something was up. So, okay. I sent you pictures. Oh, cool. And what it was used for, Gayle. That's cool. Thank you. I know how to hit the bell and all. Oh, I know. I know. I didn't realize you were diabetic. Where have I been? LOL. Yeah, I have some issues. It's not as bad as it used to be, but I have some issues. Right now, my big thing is the blood sugar will drop. It very rarely goes high, and it's literally just when I'm on steroids. But before I had the adrenal gland removed with the tumor on it, then everything was going crazy. So diabetes was one of my problems. So you can show everyone if you want to, Gayle. I will see about bringing that up. Give me a sec. I'm going to have to sign in and all that. So, all right. Let me log in. Give me just a minute to get logged in and set up and everything. So let's talk about gear and what service dogs wear. Pipsy wears a harness, and that's because he is a mobility dog. That's what I got him for, is to help me with mobility. And so what he does is this was before he got hurt, but he balances, braces, counterbalances. I've got the picture up here. Counterbalances and just helps stabilize me. And so he helps on steps and so forth. There's a picture of us. We're at a restaurant, a distillery, and he has decided he just wants some cuddle time. But you can see him in the harness there. And it's pretty big, and it's got the buckles, and it's got the service dog written on the handle, and a couple of other little places there. But he has the harness so I can hold on to it when I'm walking. Here's another picture of him wearing it. I'll pull that up too. So it's like a little handle, basically. That's what a harness is. And let's see here, photos. So there's another one of him in his harness. So what I would do is hold on to the top of his harness, the handle kind of thing. And if I started to stumble, I would kind of lean on it a little bit toward that. Now, he really sprang into action one day for me and possibly kept me from breaking my neck. We were at a little theater. It was a national park, little place. And we were in there to watch the movie. Well, I was at the top because they had actual benches on the top row. And the others were done like steeper steps. So like kids could come in and sit on those. Well, what happened is I don't walk well because I have foot drop. And so I don't feel in my right foot like a normal person would. So I get in there and I don't feel the edge of the step. I just kind of step wrong. And so what happened in the blink of an eye was like he dived in and kept me from falling on down those steps. And I know I would have gotten badly hurt if he had not been there. Because John was trying to grab me and stuff, and that actually, I don't want to say this too much out loud, but that actually made the situation a little worse because he was trying to grab me, but Pipsy already had me because he dived in and he was right there and he was bracing. And so that helped keep me from going on down the amphitheater steps. So kind of a big deal, you know. But again, we had the bonding, and he recognized that something was wrong and picked up on the fact that I was stumbling, and boom, just like there he was. So really, really good. Here's a picture of that. And then he's kind of like looking at me, giving me this like beady-eyed stare the rest of the time that we were in there. Oh, you'll see what I mean in just a second. He's got this like, look at that. He's got like this little reproachful look on his face. Like, are you going to stay there, Mom? You're not going to come back over here, right? So You can see it's kind of steep, and I was at the top. That's my knee. I'm on the bench, and so when I started to stumble, he just dived right in and got there, and he just leaned against me, and that's exactly what I needed to keep from going down there. So that's one of the times that I can definitively point to and say he made a difference. So yeah, and the other thing is, like I said, he does some bracing, some general balancing. I can use them a lot on uneven ground because with me, with my foot, I don't do uneven ground too well. So when I'm at some place like here at the park, you can see that the ground is gravelly, and I don't do well on gravel because if there's a little dip, I can't feel it with my feet. And it's especially bad if it's on gravel because my feet, like my brain registers that it's not a smooth, even surface. So it's slower to register if there's a dip. So I tend to fall more on this. And you can kind of see right here that I'm holding on to his harness and I'm kind of bracing, even though we're not moving. And he knows to be right there and not 10 feet away from me and not pulling on a leash going one way or the other. And that's because he's trained to do that. So, okay. Am I going? No, I'm not. That would be a really nice thing, but I'm not. And so what I'm going to try to do this year is concentrate on Tennessee. So I wouldn't be going out necessarily anyway. Cool. I'm going to pull those up in just a minute. Yeah. So that with the theater there, that's one of the times I can definitively point to and say he saved me from getting real bad hurt, if not breaking my neck. Uneven ground also. But I want to go back to the harness there just a second. Let me pull it back up. The one where I was in the restaurant was a really good photo. He has these loops on the side of his harness, and they showed really good in that video. In that photo. Bum, 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 bum. So I'm scrolling through real quick trying to find it. But I wanted to point that out to you because the loops on his harness are loops like what a blind person would use for guiding. And of the ones I see, that really is the best one. So let me just scan. Okay, here's another one that I can show you. Now, not everyone who's blind is going to use this, but a lot will. So I'm going to try to zoom in. Hopefully you all can see that, that loop right there on his harness that I've zoomed in on. So one of the things that the loop, or the primary thing rather, that the loop is for doing guide work. So the person wouldn't necessarily have the harness going up like this does on Pipsy, but the harness would go like in between, within this loop, and hook in somewhere around in here. And they could use that to guide. Now, obviously, I don't need guiding, but that was just a feature that was already on the harness. So there you go. And the harnesses are specially designed. His was custom made in Italy, imported just for him, made of Italian leather. And it was to his size specifications that he needed. So doesn't that sound really, really highfalutin to say that way? But yeah, I just found it on a random Etsy shop, and they happen to only do harnesses by measurement. So you get a much better fit. And it was about half the price of what I could find in the US. So yeah, it's not as fancy as what it sounds like. So, okay, so there he is with his harness. Let's see what else was. Oh, I was going to show you on my previous service dog. He's in a vest. Let me see if I can pull that up. And you all have probably seen vests as well as capes. So he didn't have to wear a harness. Just looking to see if I have a picture of him in his vest. Mm-hmm. I knew I should have bookmarked that link. Well, anyway, as I flip through here, trying to find it, just trying to scroll down here, he wore a vest because I didn't need him to do the mobility work. I didn't need that at that time. That came along later in life when my leg decided to quit working. So what I needed him for was seizure response and some asthma response. Now, we hear a lot about seizure alert dogs. But like the diabetes alert dogs, you can't necessarily train a dog to alert for seizures. And again, that comes out of the bonding. But some breeds are a little more likely to be able to bond tighter and to be able to pick up on the seizures a little more easily. And that is why we went with a Husky mix because they had a great reputation for that. And whoa. And I guess all the pictures of him being in his vest must be on the other computer because he's not wearing it. And that's another thing too about service dogs is they don't have to wear any kind of vest or harness or have a special leash or anything like that. And you cannot ask somebody what's wrong with you. You can ask two things. Is that a service dog that's required because of a disability? And what tasks is the dog trained to do? The reason why, now I'm very open about this, okay, but a lot of people aren't. And the reason why you can't make somebody give up their personal information when they're with a dog is you can thank HIPAA. So, yeah, so there he is in some of the other shots here. And I'm noticing that he's not wearing his vest at all. He's wearing well, actually, he is kind of wearing, he actually is wearing a vest. But you can't see any of it. You can just see the straps. But there's his leash, there's his collar that's got his ID, and that's his vest straps. But
okay, Tom,
I didn't need that at the time. I was having more trouble with my lungs. They couldn't keep my asthma settled down, and I was having a lot of bad asthma attacks to the point where I'd been hospitalized because of asthma on a breathing machine, thanks to asthma. So, okay. So those are some of the things that service dogs do, and the training is a little different. Some of the things for like asthma that he would do, and is some of the same things that Pipsy would do. And that is when I started coughing, he would come and Pipsy will come. And if I need my inhaler, I can get the dog to go get my inhaler. Now, the trick is I have to put the inhaler where it goes, and I don't always do that. So that can be an issue with the dog because he'll come back and look at me, and he's just got that same kind of expression that he has on his face with the theater. Like, are you kidding me? But that's just part of it. I have to do my part too. So he'll go and get my inhaler. So does Pipsy. With Pipsy, if I don't put the inhaler in the right place, he's been trained to go get my bag. And I didn't think about training Tomlin to do that. And that's one of the things too that you get into, I think, when you owner train versus doing the prison training. And I wanted a prison trained dog with Pipsy because with a prison trained dog, the dog gets 24/7 training. When you train your own, you're seeing a trainer like once or twice a week. So it's a little difference in the quality of training and also the knowledge base that you're drawing on. So I didn't know to train him to also go get my bag. So Pipsy knows that, and Pipsy can do that. The other thing is, if I'm having a problem and I'm not really bouncing back with my inhaler like I should be, or if I think I'm going to have a seizure, or if I've fallen and I'm having issues, then I can tell Pipsy, go get Dad, and he will go and he'll get my husband. And then my husband can respond with show me, and Pipsy will bring him into wherever I am, and he can figure out what I need from there. So that is a very helpful thing. We also have this thing where I've told my neighbor that I have a service dog, and Pipsy can let himself out of the house. If you've got a door with a handle that pushes down, he can push down on the handle and he can go out. So I've told my neighbor, and she's amazing, that just if you happen to see him out by himself, there's probably something wrong with me. So come check. Neighbors on both sides know that. And that is, being able to open the door is a good thing. But you also have to watch that he doesn't just simply let himself out. He's never done that, but I do know of a dog that has, and that would be Tomlin. So, yeah. One of those things. Tomlin could get himself in some messes. But fortunately, Pipsy is not as adventuresome or adventurous. He likes to stay real close. So those are some of the things that they do. Pipsy, I've had a somewhat recent development with him and me. And that is, I have epilepsy. My seizures have been well controlled for around 20, 25 years, unless I have diabetes. Unless I have an asthma attack, rather. And they give me the steroids. Then one of the things that the steroids does, in addition to jacking up my blood sugar, is it lowers my seizure threshold. But there's a time in every person who has a seizure disorder, there's certain times of their life when it's just time to tweak the medicine and change it. And so back before Christmas, we had a lot going on, and Pipsy kept coming up, and he was doing this alert behavior. And I was like checking my blood sugar and everything, and I'm like, everything's fine. Like, go away, leave me alone. Everything's fine. I'm checking out. And he would keep exhibiting this behavior. Well, should have clued me in. One of the things that the service dog program says, first thing straight up, is trust your dog. And I do, but I wasn't getting the message. And so what's been happening is I have been having periods where I was just really scattered and spacey. Um, Now, this came about after COVID, and for a while, you know, we were just blaming it on COVID fog. And I do still have some COVID fog. Don't hear me say I don't. But yeah, apparently I've been having some not seizures, but seizure activity. And so now I get to make a journal and write it down every time he comes up and exhibits the alert behavior. I have to write down what he's doing and how I'm feeling, because they have now had to increase my epilepsy medicine. And we strongly suspect that for the past couple of months, there have been times when he has tried to tell me something was wrong, but idiot me wasn't picking up on that. So I am starting to see some correlation. So that just tells you that sometimes service dogs are a little more amazing than you give them credit for. So anyway, so those are some of the things that service dogs can do, some of the things that they're trained to do. And again, in order for it to have a service dog, you have to have a disability, and the dog has to be task trained. So I wanted to take just a minute, and since I've got a couple of minutes here, I want to take just a quick minute and talk very briefly about the difference between service dogs, emotional support dogs, and therapy dogs. I had this really odd conversation for the second time now, similar conversations about how somebody had a service dog and they wanted to be able to take it places because they needed their ESA with them, and they got their ESA registered online, and they can take it anywhere because it provides support and comfort, because it's a psychiatric PTSD dog because the person had PTSD. So I was like, okay, let me test my understanding. Is this a service dog? Is it an ESA? Is it a PTSD dog? Just say more exactly about what type of dog this is, because I'm totally confused. And she's like, yeah, it's a therapy dog. And I'm like, okay, so a therapy dog is something different than any of the others that you've just mentioned. So I carry a copy of the ADA law with me, and I just handed it to her and said, maybe this will help you figure it out. So real quick, service dogs are task trained, like we've talked about. They can be a psychiatric dog. For PTSD, they can be trained to wake a person up if they're having a nightmare, stop an anxiety or panic attack before it gets worse. They can be trained to search a house, open up the door, and before that person goes into the house, the dog can be trained house or search, and they'll go around the house, and if the dog comes back, everything's fine, and that can reassure somebody who has PTSD that it's okay. They can be trained to go get a person, to go get a phone, so the person can call for help, remind to take medicines, all those kinds of things. So what's happening is some people are getting that confused with being an emotional support animal. And emotional support animals are great. Don't hear me say that they're not. But for an emotional support animal, there's no training that's needed. The person has to go to their doctor. The doctor writes a letter that they would benefit from having an emotional support animal, and that's it. They don't have public access rights. They can't go places. They're not task trained, but their job is to be a pet and to provide support for somebody who just needs support. And that's different from being a therapy dog. Therapy dogs go to nursing homes, they go to court, they're in schools, um, and they're there at hospitals, and they're there to provide comfort. And therapy dogs are also those are also comfort dogs. And therapy dogs are also in a therapeutic setting where you may have one with a social worker or a psychologist, and they provide support, but they're also trained on how to do that. So they're trained to let kids climb all over them without responding negatively, to let a child like lay against them and read a book, trained to come up and put their paw on someone when they need comfort. So some things like that, but not to the point of being a service dog. So those are some of the differences. So if you all have any questions, if you're in the chat, go ahead and type your questions in. But if you come back later, then drop your comments down in the comment section, and I'll try to get to your questions as soon as I can. So, okay. So that's pretty much what I was going to say about the service dogs. And now I want to go into Thomas Moore's trains. Brought some things up and sent me some photos. So he's typing some things in. Conrail took over by CSX and Norfolk Southern Railroads. He has a 3D printed Union Pacific number 844, and it will be in the Greyhound paint scheme, which is so cool. So cool. The Conrail gauge lock spike is made from real hard spring steel, and he says it's real strong. So I'm going to go in here and pull up my email where he sent the pictures. Okay, there he goes. Now you're going to have to tell us what all this is again. So I'm going to let you type it in there. So you sent that photo. And here's another photo of it. Okay, and that's a Conrail locomotive there. And you're going to have to tell me what that is. I've not seen one of those. So what have we got there? Thank you, Busy. I appreciate that. Okay, that's the gauge lock spike. Gotcha. Okay, whoops. So I hope that the info is helpful. Like I said, if you have any more questions, let me know about those. Okay. So, and I'm going to pull these pictures up again. I know they're a little off topic there, but I think they're cool. And I'll just go back through it. And the other one. So there you go. All right. Well, thank you all for coming out. Again, if you all have not subscribed to the channel, those of you who come back later, I hope you will go ahead and subscribe and be part of our Bodacious family, because we're all about not letting life get in the way of living. And we do lifestyle, travel, and service dog videos and live streams. So do subscribe and continue to check us out. And Thomas Moore is saying that that's the gauge spike that was in the track, holding the tracks in place with the E-clip. Cool. Busy Lady's going to see us on Facebook. Awesome. Since you mentioned that, I always forget to bring it up, but we have a Facebook group. So I'm typing that URL in right now. So yeah, y'all who come back and listen to us, come join our group. neat people there. All right. Thank you all. You have a great, whoops, I'm going to stop sharing now. Thank you all for coming out. Have a great night. Have a fabulous week. And I will see you next week at 7:30 on the live stream. And I've got a shorts coming up tomorrow, by the way. It was requested based on the previous stream that I did the other day when I was talking about how to plan vacation as a disabled person. Somebody wanted more information on how to get the TSA disability notification card. So tomorrow's shorts is just walking you through that. It's a free card. You download it, you print it out, and you're good to go. So watch for that tomorrow on the shorts. So thanks. You guys take care. Have a great weekend and a fabulous week. See you Saturday at 7:30 right here. Goodbye, y'all.